Welcome to BrotoGP. This is episode number 114. We are coming at you this week because something actually happened in World Superbike, and we actually have a new host to talk about it. So if you'll notice down to my, if you're watching on YouTube, down to my bottom left or something, introduce yourself down there.
Am I the one down there?
Yeah, you're the one down there. I forgot to tell you what side you're on.
My first go at this. So, okay, this is Kyle Wyman.
Hi, Kyle. How's it going?
Live from my office. So I'm just hanging out here with you guys. Talk about somebody other than myself today.
Yeah, Kyle has been asking to be a legit host on BrotoGP for a while. And we felt like his energy, as you could tell from everything he just said, was going to bring a lot to this podcast.
Oh, yeah. So mellow.
Kev is here, too. You know him. I'm going to hit the intro vid, though. Here we go.
Let me bring the energy back up a little, guys. I'm Kev, and this is Two Guys, One Kev. And Alvaro Bautista took a huge shit all over World Superbike, and Johnny Rea lapped it all up. That's what we're talking about today. Dumping on World Superbike, and someone was overrated, but and I'm done.
Dad, the jokes are coming already. I love it. Yeah, so should we jump right into it then? Let's we're talking about Alvaro Bautista and we're talking about Ducati. Who are you gonna blame? Let's see right off the bat before we even talk about it. Who won that race? Ducati with the new V4 or Alvaro Bautista? Kev, you're first.
Johnny Rea's stepdad won that race.
What?
He fucking got fathered, son, right in front of everyone.
All right, not an option. Perfect. Kyle, what do you say?
I'm gonna circle A and B.
Dude, you're gonna take them both.
That V4R is something else, and Bautista isn't that washed up MotoGP rider than everybody thinks he is. That's what I say.
Yeah, Kyle actually had me look it up before we started recording. Bautista's Superpole time was his second fastest lap around Phillip Island ever, including all the time that he spent on a Ducati in MotoGP and a Honda, and including his trip there last year on the factory bike replacing Jorge Lorenzo. So it's not
the common thread that's come up with this race, because he didn't just win. It was the first rookie, quote unquote rookie, and to win his first race since Max Biaggi, I think 2007. Because Max Biaggi rode Honda 2005, got blackballed in 2006. And then rode Corona GSXR 1000 2007, won his opening race. But then went on to win all three races. So the first race, and then the sprint race, and then the third race. And so you have a couple different talking points. One, Alvaro Bautista goes super fast around Phillip Island. It's a unique track for him. See his performance on factory Ducati at the last season. Then the other talking point is the V4R is like a homologation special that really has no business being there. It's a brand new motor, so it has no restrictions, so they're blowing the pants off of it. And then also that Phillip Island is like an outlier on its own. You saw I think Marco Melendri won last year in the opening round, and then
both races.
And then went on to do fuck all the rest of the season. So there's talk there of which percentage of those three things is the truth. X-Files theme song.
It's a little bit of everything. Like everybody wants to take one thing and just run with it. Like it's the track is such an outlier. Don't look at anything, dude. I think he probably would have won by 20 seconds if he didn't slow down to 12 miles per hour on the last straightaway in race 2. I mean, he's freaking gone.
Yeah, at some point he was 17 seconds ahead. And by race 2, you mean Sunday's race 3, right?
Yes, I'm sorry. I obviously need to get used to this. There's too many races.
No, we'll talk about how silly the Superpole race is in a little bit.
Yeah, I mean it was entertaining. I'll give you that. But
Excuse me.
dude, he's gone, and that's a lot more than just it's a Ducati track, or it's the rider, or it's the the performance of the new bike. It's everything combined together in a situation where, dude, Bautista comes into this and he's never raced any of these guys. He has no reason to believe that anybody is better than he is. He comes in and says, I don't care who these guys are. I'm just going to go in and whoop their ass, and he did.
Yeah, I mean, and classically, we've seen the GP riders do good in World Superbike when they move over to the Pirelli tires. Actually, Dennis wanted us to highlight that, or he was actually wondering about it. Why do you think that is, Kyle? I've only ridden the Pirellis like once, and I don't think it was the Superbike tires. I want to hear your thoughts on it before I jump in with my complete speculation.
Well, I mean, why somebody can get on Pirellis from Michelin's and do well? Is that
or yeah, or from any GP tire, right? Because we've seen it from moving over from Bridgestones as well.
I mean, I don't have personal experience, obviously, so I can't really speak to it. But the thing is these guys they're at such a level, they just adapt. They're able to adapt to different motorcycles, different tracks, different situations. That's why they're at that level. I mean, I'm going to go race Daytona on Pirellis, and I've ridden on Pirellis, and they're different than the Dunlops, but, at some point you figure out, okay, this is the edge of grip, and then you just got to lock into where that limit is, and then you're pretty good. Like, it's really not too bad. It's a whole package. It's not one thing, It's not just that they can adapt to the tires. They got a team that's around them, new bike, new excitement. Everybody's pumped. We're tired of that twin. Now they got refreshed, point of view on going racing and, trying to dethrone the Cowies. And so far they got to be pretty happy.
I mean, when the race was going down, I was watching and then following on Twitter, and it was like the common thread, well, we'll see what happens after, this many laps, or when he was doing really good Superpole and in practice, there was like this expectation that he was going too fast, right? He was going to burn the tires up. He'd fade at the end. That was like the big common thread of the of sort of like the online coverage. And of course, he showed that wasn't the case at all. And he was able to maintain his pace. And like you said, could have won by plus 20 if he hadn't slowed down, towards the end of that one race. And I mean, I think I wonder if it's not so much that the switch over to Pirelli is. Like Pirelli didn't they've even though they've been the consistent tire, they haven't stopped development, and you kind of get to that point where manufacturers know how to make a tire last the whole race. We've seen that Bridgestone had it, and then everyone acted like this was this random thing. Oh man, Bridgestone has made these tires that last, you can run your fastest lap at the end of the race. That doesn't make any sense. And then everyone thought that when GP switched over to Michelin, that was going to change. Remember, they even said we told them to do that. But look what happens. It isn't the case. The Michelin tires last at full spec the whole time. And I just don't think, again, I don't ride on the tires myself, but Alvaro kind of proved there's not really that big of a difference between what's happening in terms of how you set up and ride that tire. It may be that I don't know how hard that a street bike, quote unquote, even though that's not really a street bike, can actually punish a race tire comparatively.
Here's the thing. I was on that same line of thinking, for the first couple laps. I'm like, okay, he's going to try to get away. We'll see what happens. But like lap 3 and 4, I mean, really after in race 1, when Alvaro blew past Rea between turns 2 and 3, and I was like, holy crap. Like, it's not just the front straightaway. He's gapping him tenths of a second out of each exit. I'm like, it doesn't matter. Like, you haven't seen somebody build up a gap that quickly on that level of a field and then just like fade back and not win the race. I knew by lap 4, I was like, that's it. Right. Even if his tires drop off, he's already like, he's not going to drop off to a second. When the tires fall off, these guys drop off a few tenths. It's never a second.
Well, that's exactly what he did, right? Is he had so much time in hand that him dropping off was still faster than everyone else's drop off. Like, I think, Kev, what you were saying, right, the comparison between GP tires and the Pirellis and World Superbike, they do not last the race only by comparison to GP tires, right? Like the Bridgestones definitely could run lap record at the end of the race when the fuel light was low, or when the fuel load was light. Pirellis have always been like about a second a lap slower towards the end of the race. So yeah, they still last the whole race, and it's not like I could get them to go a second a lap slower at the end of the race, but they're definitely they've definitely fallen off more than a GP tire would have. And I guess Michelin GP tires are probably somewhere in between those two, right? They run maybe a couple of tenths slower towards the end of the race and are not setting lap records at the end.
And maybe Kyle can speak to this, but one thing that I was thinking when I was is, he made the joke about, he's not a washed-up GP rider, but there's one thing to remember is that Alvaro Bautista is a 125. Excuse me, guys.
Pneumonia?
I had pneumonia. It's no big deal. Alvaro Bautista is a 125cc champion, and won races, was competitive, and the hunt in 250s. So he still comes from that era of wide sweeping turns, smooth riding, 2 strokes, keeping it like in a narrow power band. Like, you look at that style, and like we talked about Max Biaggi, right? We've talked about Marco Melandri. You look at the riders who've moved from GP to World Superbike that have done well, all have that background in lightweight 2-stroke riding. Look at other riders who may not have done as well, like, Carl Abraham. Now his team, he talked about that on an episode we did a long time ago, wasn't that great. But he was a Moto2 rider and then rode in MotoGP and didn't have the same competitive, sharp end of the stick, 250cc and 125cc riding. I just wonder how much of the style that was learned in that riding goes to maintaining tires long term.
Man, I don't even know if it's as much as a style as it is just like a level of intensity. When you come up through that system of 125, 250, and like you're at the top or you're nobody. Like, if you want to make it, you need to be winning. And the guys who end up winning are the ones who just bring this level of intensity that nobody can compete with. Now, he goes into MotoGP. He has a few podiums. He never really gets like a huge break. He's a factory Suzuki rider, but
they basically quit.
Yeah. I believe that any of the top 15 guys in MotoGP can win races in the right situation, with the right mindset, with the right crew, with the right. There's so many variables in this sport. You can't put it on one thing or two things here and there. So you take him out of World or MotoGP, put him in World Superbike, new team, new fresh perspective, start over, and all of a sudden you start tapping into those 125 days, 250 days where you know what? Screw these guys. I'm just gonna.
And the other thing I feel like is, and you've talked about mindset and intensity, is and especially bringing all things together, right? Is every aspect of Bautista, Ducati as a manufacturer, as a new bike, as a team, as a rider, they literally all had something to prove above and beyond normal that first race. Look at this bike we made that's damn near a GP bike ready to go. You know what I mean? It's like the Aprilia RSV4S that they made, right? That was a race bike that they made street legal. And Alvaro Bautista, I'm unceremoniously, left GP. I'm still at the top. I've got something to prove. Every single aspect of that team, top down, went into that race with I have something to prove chip on my shoulder. And I don't, as a team, I don't know, but when all of that level of intensity and drive and focus is all there at the same time, that's worth time. It's we talk about sport in general or whatever. Yeah, 90% mental, 10% physical, but we always train the physical, right? That's a huge portion of the mental aspect of what's driving those guys. And if they're all ready to, prove something just above and beyond, we want to go win a race, right? Because everyone wants to go win the race, but they have something beyond. Winning the race meant more than just winning. Winning that race meant validation for the design, for the team, for the new direction, for the rider. That was a validation race for everyone.
Yeah. Validation for running a GP bike in World Superbike. Yes, right. I totally agree.
Right.
I'm happy for the guy. How many years How many years has it been since he sat on the grid and said, you know what, I can win this fucking race?
Probably about a decade.
You know what I mean?
I think they were saying that. It's been, 12 years since he's won a race? Something like that. I'm probably misremembering it.
Maybe he thought that at Phillip Island last year, I'm on the factory bike, this is my track. the fucking right circumstances and I could do it. But this was like, I could run the table this weekend.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, not just win the race, but like fucking drop the hammer on these guys.
Mm-hmm.
It was funny. He screwed up one thing the whole weekend, though. Did you guys watch Superpole? I'll take that as
he screwed one thing this entire weekend. Title of Rob Sex 8.
Yeah, there you go. No, he that's the one thing he didn't get right this weekend was Superpole. His lap was like he stressed the tires too hard. He tried to go out for a second lap. Like everything about his Superpole was not like he had done it before, which he probably hasn't. Right? They don't give Pirelli doesn't give handout Superpole tires for those guys to practice very often, if at all.
Rob's cat has arrived.
He's so confident in himself that he's laughing about it.
Oh yeah,
hard for me though. He's like, this is the first time I've done this. Like, what do you expect?
And there was no real grid reshuffle anymore, so he was fine. He wasn't going to start in ninth.
Right. The first time he ever did something in World Superbike, and he was the second best.
Yeah. Okay.
You know what I mean? So it's the next thing is, fuck, one more thing, I'll be the best.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and I'll be the best under 3 different circumstances.
Yeah.
All right, I want to move on to comparing to the rest of Ducati. But before we do that, this episode, of course, is brought to you by Riders Law. So they got their nice poster right above my head. Riders Law, they're your California motorcycle accident injury lawyers. No, Kyle, you're just pointing at memes. Sorry.
Shit.
If you find yourself in a sticky situation, you got into an accident on the street with your motorcycle, you're fighting your insurance for something, you need any legal help.
Finding yourself in a sticky situation, title of Rob's sex tape.
Boom!
If you need legal help,
my work here is complete.
Please give Riders Law a call.
Thanks.
Yeah, Kyle, out.
That's all I wanted.
Oh man, you just blew everyone's eardrums and ruined my plug. But
you just blew everyone title of Rob Sexton.
I said eardrums. God damn it!
Right.
You scared the cat away. Now she's gone. No, yes. So I did find out recently that a few of our fans have been calling Riders Law. So please keep that up. They do amazing things for our sport. They support us. They support Moto America. You'll see plenty of bikes on the grid with Riders Law stickers this year. So yeah, give them a call and they will help you out.
One of my favorite things about Rob's sponsor plug is that he acts surprised that the sponsorship results in like contact, which is super good for us getting new sponsors, right? Like, hey, HJC helmets, someone might buy one. You should sponsor us because we'll be surprised if it works. That's my favorite part. Let me tell you something, Suomi helmets. 89 people called Cy from Riders Law yesterday. And they needed massive legal help. Cy has brought in 17 new paralegals just to deal with the overflow of the massive success that is his BrotoGP sponsorship. That's more like it.
I feel like I like your plugs better there, Kev. You should take over.
Huge plugs.
Huge plugs. Yeah, we'll go with that. We'll go with that one.
Right.
Anyways, so the next comparison that I want to talk to are really maybe we don't have to compare directly to Bautista, but I want to talk about the other Ducatis. So we saw some mixed performances.
What other Ducatis?
Yeah, exactly. From Davies, Rinaldi, or Ruben Rinaldi. I guess I got to say the whole thing, and Laverty. Now, I guess the one thing that sticks out to me is Alvaro for sure has the most experience with a V4 Ducati with advanced electronics and essentially trying to put a GP bike on the World Superbike grid. So the other guys might have been at a disadvantage, but do you really think it would lead to the performance that we saw at Davis?
I mean, for me, you say all that, but Laverty raced Aprilia, the factory Aprilia, which was effectively trying to put a GP bike on the grid and won a ton of races. Mm-hmm. The main difference between all of those other Ducati riders and Alvaro Bautista is one of them is a world champion. Like,
fair enough.
Like you forget, like people forget that about GP, right? Like some of the work, like what was the big joke last year, right? Like look at some of the riders, not joke, but look at some of the riders in GP who had terrible years last year. Tito Rabat and Franco Morbidelli, just 2 world champions.
Yeah.
Like they're like, you know what I mean? Like the guys that like Kyle said, like it was almost like he was laughing, you know? It was like that guy has a level of confidence. Like he's still a world champion. Like winning a title at that level of prestige kind of does, he knows, you know, and like Chaz Davies is cool and all, but I've never really believed in the hype that he had, and Laverty is kind of trying to come back from, you know, being down in the dumps from, you know, basically leaving the squad, going to the SMR team. He has so much more to come back from because of that year. I mean, Carol Abram told us how, like, that team is not good. Like, they're not cool. I mean, he basically called them liars on that episode and talked about how bad the SMR team really was. So for me, it's almost like last year was a dead year for Laverty. He's just trying to get back, like, his mojo back.
Yeah. The other Ducatis, like, so.
Come on, Kyle.
let's talk about, you know, Chaz misses a bit of testing this winter compared to Alvaro.
Injury again.
Yeah, injured. Dude, I mean, if you take Bautista's confidence, the exact opposite looked like Chaz's. I mean,
right.
Just watching him ride, he just has not gotten the feeling that he needs. I believe that he made a huge step on Sunday. He was able to kind of come through the field up to 9th. I think he ended up finishing 10th, but he started to get something going. And I don't envy his position because, you know, at this point he's got to be pretty demoralized. But, like, all things considered, you know, he's got to be going into the season a little bit like, man, I hope this bike's good enough. I hope it's this. I hope it's that. And then ends up being in a position where the results don't come right away. Your teammate's P1, and it doesn't help. You know,
I mean, that's a better position to be in than the teammate not being P1, right? Because at least he knows the bike is there.
Is it though?
Honestly,
I mean,
no.
I don't agree, man.
Like, I don't think so, dude. I mean, for to be like coming from behind like that and feeling like, God, I'm just like not there yet. It makes you do things that you wouldn't normally do on the motorcycle. It makes you override the motorcycle. It makes you feel like you're
Chaz
what's
is the
lacking.
king of.
Yeah, well, I mean, the dude has like a really good track record at Phillip Island also. I mean, I don't know if he's won any of them, but he's been quick, you know. And yeah, I just feel like his time's going to come. He's just kind of got to get back into his groove. Like he doesn't have that like quiet confidence that he usually does. So
yeah, he really like he had the mojo going at the end of 2017. I think he won like the majority of the second half of the races, but then Ducati showed up
4 or 5 in a row, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like it all it started at Laguna and just kept going.
Yeah.
But like he showed up.
Here's the point I want to make about that. He's not done. He's not washed up. He's not anything. Just give the guy a minute. You know what I mean? Like he's got to adjust. You know? Okay.
Counterpoint,
no.
Kev. Go.
What have you done for me lately? The world only exists. I am the goldfish of MotoGP and Superbike fans. I only care what we did last race. Chaz is washed up. Fire.
Well, hey, I mean, really, what matters is whether Ducati thinks that way or not.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what matters, right?
I mean, you wonder if Ducati like was surprised, like holy shit, like Alvaro just dropped the fucking hammer. Like we weren't quite expecting this right away, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. I think, dude, they know what they built.
Right.
That thing is a freaking weapon.
It spins. Like, it spins faster than my R6 does.
You just like I closed my eyes for a couple laps watching the race and listened to Bautista just turning laps, and I'm like, sounds like a GP18 to me.
Pro tip, everyone: professional motorcycle racers watch with their eyes closed.
Correct.
No, I was just like, I'm like, God, this thing sounds exactly like a MotoGP bike. It spins up the same way. It spools up the same way. comes off the corner the same way. I mean, his lap times were literally between the GP18, the factory bike that he rode at the end of last year, in tenths a second on Pirellis compared to the MotoGP tires, which I have to think would be a better tire. I mean, I don't know. I haven't ridden them both, but like, that's insane for a production bike.
Yeah, for the tires, we tend to default to their Superpole tire is comparable to the GP tires, which would imply that the bikes are just as fast. Yeah, I mean, the race tires are getting closer.
The race tire lap was still within a second of his personal, best on the GP bike.
Yeah, what I've got it here. I think it was his fastest race lap. If you don't, are we going to include the Superpole race? His fastest race lap in the Superpole race was like only 4/10 slower than his Superpole time, which means it was only 4/10 slower than his fastest ever.
I have
GP
a hard
time
personally including the Superpole race because one of the differences, the whenever there's this kind of situation where someone goes particularly fast at a World Superbike and then they bring up like Superbike versus GP and there's all these different variables. The Superbike races, there's 2 races and they're shorter. Right? Yep. So it's difficult to make a tire last 45 minutes versus 30 minutes.
They got to carry less fuel.
Also about fuel. Yeah.
Yep.
Right, exactly. Yep. The Super Bowl race is almost like an outlier. That's like an exhibition. It's an entertainment. It should almost be like a trophy race. You know what I mean?
That's what they made it for.
Yeah, right. But it's almost like it shouldn't count, and you should just get cash money for that shit. You know what I mean? Like $50,000 for the winner. Yeah, exactly. A dash for the cash, like old school flat track style, right? That would almost be more entertaining and better. But even still, I guess the thing I have to say is, like you said, the other Ducati riders didn't do that. Yeah, the thing's a weapon. Yeah, it sounds like a GP bike. I mean, I don't know. I don't fucking close my eyes and watch and see with my ears because I'm not a fucking genius. You know what I mean? But yeah, you gotta.
It wasn't 2 whole laps.
What is this? The Matrix cut? I imagine walking into a kitchen and a lady serves me brownies, and then Kyle holds up a spoon and he's like, "You must see that there is no bike." And then the fucking spoon melts down, and no one ever really explains what that means. I mean, I don't even know what Kyle's talking about right now. I watched with my eyes closed. Right? Okay, Morpheus. Kyle watched his eyes closed while Hannah sat next to him with pebbles in her hand, and he would randomly just be like, "Shabang!" and snag him. Jesus.
That's how I train.
No, I mean, Davis and Rinaldi were both kind of handicapped by the fact that they've been racing a twin the past, Davis for quite a while now. Rinaldi mostly the last, 2-3 years, I think he's been on the Ducati in Stock 1000 and then in Superbike.
Freaking motorcycle.
Yeah.
I mean, Chaz Davies,
that's true.
Chaz has made a career out of switching bikes.
Yeah.
Right? He rode a fucking Celtic Racing R1 in Formula, or R6 in Formula Extreme. He was on a BMW. I mean, he was on so many bikes. Aprilia.
In the 600 class, yeah.
Right. The guy, yeah, exactly. The guy's whole, yeah, exactly. Remember that shit?
I don't remember that shit. I don't know what you're talking about.
We don't talk about 2009.
You want to talk about Formula Extreme letting
we deleted that year.
Yeah, exactly.
Existence.
Kyle's got a story.
Just like the Middle Ages, those years didn't exist.
Yeah, exactly.
The motorcycle economy was great back then.
I do want to talk about Rinaldi because he pulled into the pits in race 3.
Oh, I missed that.
And I don't know why he pulled in, but he pulled back out, and he actually right in front of that battle between the Yamahas. Was it Melandri and Vandermark, and Lowe's was kind of...
It was all 4 of them. They battled together all 3 races, pretty much.
And
in Cortez.
He pulled back out all 4 of them, Tyler Rob 16.
There you go. So...
this is terrible.
Well, so what I saw was he pulled back behind them, and it was about the second half or last third of the race, and Rinaldi stayed on the back of those Yamahas for 6-7 laps running. And I was like, okay, the bike's good at that point. Like, when you look at the spec of those two satellite, if you will, Ducati teams, the Go 11 and the Barney Racing team, dude, that Go 11 bike looks like they finished it the night before the race.
That's always the thing that I wonder too about the satellite.
That
the
looks
private
like
teams.
how my bike is going to look the night before Road Atlanta.
Right. If some of you guys don't know, Kyle will be racing his own set of Ducatis.
The V4R
this year. The V4R. I believe they're arriving tomorrow. So Kyle, in front of the most important day of his season, was like, "Yeah, I'll talk shit with BrotoGP for an hour or so."
Take my mind off of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
right.
And it's not like you're busy between now and then. You don't have to go race Daytona and do a bunch of sponsor stuff while also trying to build motorcycles.
Exactly.
What did
Nothing going on.
Do you want to tell everyone when you're going to have your new Magnum Morelli electronics on the bike?
Or we're planning for round 4.
So he's going to win that race because he's going to get the new spec and just go 320 kilometers per hour down all the straightaways. Right.
That's what I've heard. You just get this thing and then you're just like automatically here.
That's how motorcycle racing works. If I was on a factory bike, I could beat everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. No, we got a task ahead of us.
In terms of it's a little bit of an aside, but when you, as someone who's going to ride this bike, right? Like, what did as a racer, a professional racer who's going to ride this bike in a national series, what did this weekend make you think? Like, we talked about the level of something to prove or this and that. Like, you decided to ride to switch from Yamaha to the Ducati, and Ducati's working with you, and you're gonna. What did this weekend make you think, as someone who will also be competing on the same bike in a Moto America level Superbike spec?
The biggest thing that I take away is that the ceiling is high. Mm-hmm. That's the biggest thing I think about. The ceiling is higher than the Yamaha to me.
Right.
I feel like it might be more difficult for me to get to that ceiling and actually maximize this bike because it's just going to cost more,
I was hoping you'd say that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it starts at a higher level and it has a higher ceiling. So I think that it's all positives. We're going to have our struggles, we're going to struggle with some stuff. But, after riding a V4S, which is apparently a big step below the R, pretty amazing.
Yeah, you haven't even ridden the R yet, right? Not even in stock form?
I haven't even seen one. The first time I see one is going to be Saturday when the bikes get out here and we uncrate them.
Winglets. The winglets are going to be great.
That's the best part.
Yeah. So,
right.
But actually, like, watching Laverty and Rinaldi, like, actually, okay, their finishing positions weren't great, but they showed some flashes of brilliance, tells me that the potential is really there. It's really there. So once they get to have some data trickle down, if Ducati Corsa is being so helpful with me, I'm emailing back and forth with some of their guys that are on the team. They're emailing me back during the race weekend at Phillip Island. They've been so helpful. Amazing. Answered all questions I could possibly have. So if they're helping me that much, they're going to help these other guys in the same paddock, get up to speed, and just they for those other teams, they haven't had the bike that long. They've only had a couple days on them. So I wouldn't be surprised to see, firstly, Chaz figure his shit out and get up front, but Rinaldi, I think, is a sleeper. I think he is.
So this brings me to kind of a point that Rob wanted to talk about. So, Ducati makes this new homologation special, but it's like above and beyond, right? Like what they used to do. It's a paradigm shift in superbikes.
It raised the game.
it changes the game, right? Enough that someone like you decided to switch his program over to it, right? Like this was an important step that you were willing to take. This step that would obviously be a lot of work because you feel the ceiling is significantly higher. Is an arms race getting set off in Superbike, but that no one else really wants to participate in? We remember the days of the RC51, the 998R, the R7. Like Superbike had a heyday where the arms race was almost good for. Like homologation specials were totally normal. That was just that was what it was. Yep. But I don't necessarily view other manufacturers necessarily being interested in it. Is this setting off a potential that for now we're all super excited? Oh my God, Ducati's back, quote unquote. Alvaro Bautista's looking so good. And there's more talk about World Superbike right now than there's been in years. But is this a potential negative?
Dude, it's only a potential negative if Dorna decides that they're going to just detune that thing until it's no longer a huge advantage. Mm-hmm. That's why do you say that? Deal. Because we need the manufacturers to be encouraged to build cool shit. We need that.
Cool shit is where it's at.
That's what we need. We don't need them to say, "Oh, we need to bring them down to this level." Sorry you guys did all this development and basically found out how to take your GP technology and keep it under the price cap in a production bike. We're just going to take that away from you anyway.
The problem.
Sorry, go ahead.
The problem that I see with that, with building cool shit, is that shit gets more expensive for everyone, right? And it gets harder to use, right? Like you already talked about it, that it's going to be difficult and costly to get the Ducati up to the level that it needs to be at. And I mean, cost is a major factor there, right? So that's all and good for the factory teams. And they're going to have they build the cool shit with the intent of going racing. They're going to have the money. They're going to make sure that it wins. But the private teams, like you, for example, or like even Laverty, right? Like, I wonder if they're getting left behind. Again, that's what I don't want to see.
Here's the very specific distinction between the rule change that I hope doesn't happen and the rule change that maybe is the right change, in my opinion. Don't detune these bikes because they're so good. Just lower the price cap of a homologated motorcycle.
Well, there is no price cap.
Because yes, there is.
No, not on the whole bike. Only on the concession parts. On the concession parts.
No, so in order for you to homologate a bike for Superbike competition, in World Superbike or worldwide, you have to be able to buy the bike from a dealership for €40,000 or $40,000 or less.
Really? On the whole bike?
Yes.
I don't remember that. Holy shit. I'm going to look it up right now. Got to do it.
All right, rule master.
So this kind of brings, like, what Kyle's point is like, go ahead, Kyle. Yeah, sorry.
Well, the thing I wanted to add is that the thing that's really interesting, this is why Ducati's brilliant in the way they did this. I guess maybe not, just taking advantage of their strength. Their strength is that they can also sell a $40,000 motorcycle, a $40,000 Superbike. If Kawasaki decides that they're going to match this thing and build a badass ZX-10 RRR that's $40,000, do they really have the market that will support that kind of motorcycle? Or are they just going to build 500 of them and put 490 of them in a warehouse somewhere to say they built them?
Yeah, but I think exactly that supports my point, right? Because I agree that I don't think Cowie could sell a $40,000 bike. I don't think Beamer could sell a $40,000 bike, right? Ducati has that market kind of locked, so they can put that out. They could, in quotations, dominate the field, and other people get left behind, right? What's going to happen to the other privateer teams?
You know who wins Superbike races all over the world? The teams that build the best package within the rules.
Yeah, no, of course.
And that's what they've done.
Kev, what do you got?
I have issue with the fact that it's not like Ducati can just build a $40,000 bike and people magically buy it. that is something that Ducati earned and cultivated over the course of 30 years. When you go back and think about what are some of the most legendary bikes that you wish you could ride right now, an RC45, an R7, the Japanese, an NR5 or an NR750 or 500. These bikes can be made, and there can be like legendary status to these. Having homologated specials that are like sought after as collector's items is not something unique to Italian manufacturers or European manufacturers by their inner essence, right? Like, it is because they've cultivated this market over time. That Kawasaki has decided to neglect this fact is not Ducati's fault. It's not MV Agusta's fault, right? Yeah. MV Agusta will sell a 1064cc version of their bike that goes 194 kilometers an hour, and and it comes in some weird color, and it has whatever, and people will fucking buy it, right? Even though it has nothing to do with racing. Like, Kawasaki could cultivate this, and I say this because other Japanese manufacturers have. Even KTM was selling their 250, their Moto3 bike at a loss, right? Because selling at the loss had more return on the back end. Yeah. Right? It's not like Kawasaki couldn't make a ZX10 RR, sell it for 40 grand, even though it's a $100,000 bike, because the prestige and interest and support of making these like sought after machines. It's like creating art. Like, you know what I mean? Like, remember when they made, like, you couldn't even buy a Desmo Sedici unless you had bought a 999R? Talk about exclusivity, right? Yeah. Like,
there's one on Craigslist now.
Right. You're not even allowed to buy it unless you've bought a 999R. Like, this is something Ducati has put effort and time and marketing and interest and focus groups into. This is not something they lucked.
So why do you bring up their fault? Why do you bring up their fault, Kev?
Because like, to Kyle's point, like, Kawasaki could easily make a ZX10X. Give it some crazy name. Throw winglets on it. Call it the ZX-H2R, whatever, fucking connect it to other motorcycles. They could do this. And you could we've talked about this before. What's one of the coolest bikes of the early 2000s? The fucking RC51. There's no one that thinks the RC51 is lame. Even though it was fat and shut up. You know what I'm saying? Not when you put an HRC subframe on it, and not when you put a front-mounted radiator on it.
Yeah, when you strip 100 pounds off it with a
sell the ZX10X, right? Like, the R7 was a total piece of shit in stock form. That wasn't the point. Everyone still wishes they had it.
Well, and so here's where I get to the point where, like, I'm like, okay, lower the price cap. Because if this does start a, like, ball of snow where every manufacturer's like, fuck it, let's just build MotoGP bikes and price them for 40 grand. At some point, there's going to be just this crossover of diminishing returns. Then they got to lower the price cap a little bit. But, like, you gotta love this whole idea that, look, okay, now we can build an even more badass bike for less money, and that growth is never going to stop. It's never going to stop. Like, that's how things go along. So the fact that Ducati just made a huge jump forward, I think, is, scary to some people. I hope they don't neuter the thing, because that's a shame. They put in all that development.
So here's the disconnect that I have is we're still talking about selling motorcycles, right? But selling motorcycles, we've seen for the past decade, has almost no impact on racing whatsoever, right? Like, Kawasaki's main seller was the 300 and is now probably going to be the 400, right?
If it wasn't so important, then Kawasaki would have made one.
Would have made wait, what?
Would have made what? $40,000 homologation special.
Yeah, well, I mean, but see, and that's the thing. If
racing was more important, if winning was that important.
And they might, right? They homologate a new ZX10R every single year, right? Unlike Honda, who's only homologated one new model since 2009 or whatever, right?
That's the thing, is you can't even call that a homologation special anymore after what Ducati just did.
Yeah, their SP2, whatever the model actually is, and that's the problem. That's the problem, right? And that's my point about them getting left behind. If we get into homologation specials and we get into really high-end bikes, even if we have a price cap that brings it down, right? We're depending on factories supplying these bikes to make any competition. I've talked about it before with GP, right? We're in this classic time where we have a lot of people to root against, right? You've got your favorite bike, you got your favorite rider, you root against everyone else, and there's a bunch of factories, a bunch of good riders to do that. In World Superbike, you got right now you got Alvaro Bautista and you got Johnny Rea. Are you rooting for BMR? Are you rooting for Honda? No, they're not doing shit, right? There's no diversity. Are you implying
that I'm not rooting for Alvaro Bautista?
No, you can root for Alvaro Bautista, but who are you rooting against?
Yeah.
Right? There's not that, like,
everyone in the every human on planet Earth, except for his wife and kids, is rooting against Johnny Rea. The reason I know this is because one rider totally destroyed the entire field the entire weekend, and everyone was stoked out of their mind.
Yep.
Everyone hates Rea and Kawasaki's dominance.
But the series would be better if they had a lot more people to root against.
No,
like we need more diversity.
We only need one. No one will get bored with 1 year or two of Bautista destroying everyone, or Ducati destroying everyone.
Agreed. So very good point, right?
No one got bored when Valentino was doing it, and right when people got bored, he switched. Yep. And everyone loved Marc Marquez and thought it was like the dopest thing ever those first 2 years, 2013 and 2014. Then it started to get weird. So basically, Cowie has 2 years to figure out whether they can sell 500 motorcycles for a loss and get people stoked. Or BMW has 2 years to figure out whether we want to make a an RR version of our bike and make it have 2 lazy eyes instead of 1 lazy eye.
Just price the HP4 at $40,000.
Right.
Well, exactly. They'll have to build an HP Ford XRRR. I know. Supposedly the new Beamer is solid, but it's not like Tom Sykes pulled an Alvaro Bautista.
Well, if they actually pull the motors apart and build the motors, they'll probably have a little bit better top end speed.
Oh yeah,
they're still running true. Like stock motors apparently.
Right.
It definitely seemed like they were on stock motors. No, but so Kev is absolutely right here. We're in the honeymoon zone right now.
Episode's over. Kev is absolutely right here. Kyle made a Rob sex tape. Kev is absolutely right, and scene.
No, so
end of title of Rob sex tape.
Yeah, exactly.
End scene.
So we're in the honeymoon phase right now, right? Mm-hmm. Like Ducati producing this new motorcycle, Alvaro winning is going to be amazing for a year or two, but eventually it's going to get old. Well,
I'm going to call that it's not going to be like that all year.
You mean to tell me right. One race is not indicative of the entire season, Kyle?
Hold on.
Yes.
Hold on.
Blasphemy.
But this trend, right? If this trend continues and we just see, I mean, even if it's just 2 people at the top, 2 factories with 2 riders at the top for the next 5-6 years, we're going to end up exactly like the series that shall not be named, Formula One, where it's a bunch of haves versus the have-nots, and there's no chance of winning a bunch of races or a championship unless you're on that specific machinery, and everyone will get bored out of their mind because there's not enough wheels to get the entire population interested in this sport. Right? That's where I fear that this shit is going. If we go down the road where the bike has to cost 40,000 euros, and really it was built for 100,000 euros, and it takes a crew 18 million euros to tune it for the entire year because the electronics are so complicated. If we end up down that road, we will be like the series that shall not be named. And that's what I worry about.
Let me ask Kyle a question. Kyle, do you remember 2002 World Superbike?
No.
What? Fuck. You blew that whole thing.
Final race of the season? That was
legendary.
I literally didn't watch a road race until halfway through 2006 when I heard this dirt tracker, Nicky Hayden, was leading a world championship.
Show us the poster.
Yeah. Okay.
You want to see that? Yeah.
Yeah, show us the poster. I'm sorry for everyone on iTunes. You're going to have to watch the YouTube video.
Boom.
That's pretty cool, huh?
Right. Oh shit! Autographed.
Yeah, come on.
Fuck. God dang.
Okay. Nicky Hayden poster. He's like 15 in that.
So I have a slight bone to pick. One of the most legendary seasons in World Superbike history is 2002.
I mean, we're talking Edwards,
Edwards and Bayless.
Edwards versus Bayless.
It was one of the greatest comebacks you'll ever see. Edwards goes on to win in the final race of the season. He comes back from however many races down. Edwards breaks the records for most races won in a row, and then Colin comes back and culminates one of the greatest comebacks you've ever seen. Only 2 guys won races that year. It's not necessarily required that the whole field is competitive. This is like a big misnomer throughout racing. You look at some of the most popular eras of GP, and you see the Rossi era where he wins 9 or 11 races in a season when there's only 15 races. Or you see a season of World Superbike where Edwards and Colin are the only race winners. They win an insane amount of races between them, and it's like a legendary season, right? Like, I'm not convinced what the storyline is what's important, not necessarily the number of actors, right? You could have an ensemble cast or you can have 2 stars, and 2 stars can still make it work. And World Superbike has proven over the years that one of the things that's different about them is versus GP is GP you root for a rider and a brand, potentially. But in World Superbike, you root for a rider, a brand, and a specific model of bike. You know what I mean? Like, I know Kyle was rooting for Alvaro in a sense that was beyond wanting to see New Blood win. That was beyond wanting to see Ducati come back, but also like, holy fuck, that bike is awesome. Isn't that fucking sweet that it's going to win? Like, the one thing that World Superbike
at some point I was like, not by that much.
Right, yeah. Right, yeah. Yeah, chill out, Alvaro. Fuck. No. You know what I mean? Take a page from Valentino.
You're going to get your rev limit drops. God damn it.
Yeah, shit.
Right. God dang. But
I don't know.
My point being is that I don't necessarily think World Superbike is still around, and it survived a number of years. One of the things that World Superbike has proven that keeps its popularity is a competitive Ducati.
Yeah.
Since the 888 era, since the 851.
One thing that's tough is like those situations where you have 2 guys pitted against each other. Like, you can't like manufacture that. You can't create that with rules.
Agreed.
You just can't. It's kind of got to happen. I think all the ingredients are there this year for there to be something like that. I mean, we go to Imola, Donington, like Cowie's going to be there.
So
and if Johnny has set the stage, he's already called out that Ducati for being better. He's doing that because when he does beat that thing, he can say, look, I still beat it.
So if you have the same 2 guys 4 years in a row, what do you think the chances are that those actors will put in a solid performance all 4 years in a row and you'll end up with something entertaining? Like, in my opinion, that's why you need more actors, just because it increases your chances of getting the right guy coming along, or the right 2 guys, because it always ends up with 2 people, right? Like, let's not kid ourselves. It's always 2 guys towards the end. Sometimes it's the same 2 the whole season. Sometimes it starts out at 6 and it trails down to 2, right? Always ends up 2 guys. But if it's only ever 2 guys, then you're fucked when one of them doesn't show up. Right, yep. Then you end up with a boring season, right? And that's why, like,
go all the way back to Rainey and Schwantz.
Yeah, it's playing the numbers here, right? It's shades of gray. We just want to increase the chances of us having entertaining motorcycle racing and having an amazing season, right? MotoGP has cultivated that with talent, with personalities, with lots of factories, with investment from everywhere. World Superbike doesn't have any of that. They have Kawasaki and they have Ducati, and that's about it.
This is a thing that we've talked about, right? Like, we've done Superbike episodes, for a couple of years now, and we've been to Superbike races. Occasionally, we've gone to Laguna races. One of the things we always
when there's something to talk about.
Right, right, exactly. But so now we're here, right? And posts on Instagram have more likes than GP posts for the first time in a long time.
Because
it's the biggest story, right? You see it all over Twitter. But let me tell you something. In the past couple of years, we have said, you go to the paddock in World Superbike and you see like the Kawasaki presence is so much bigger. Wow, everyone's putting or Kawai's putting so much money in. That's why they're winning. And now we're decrying some other team for putting a bunch of money into the season and trying to win. What we want is Yamaha or BMW to go, yo, that's how you win. You make a cool bike and you invest. Like, I don't like this idea that we need to make it cheap, because then what we're saying is you don't have to invest. I don't want teams half-assing it. I'd rather have Kawasaki and Ducati dog fighting it out, because both of them care so much that they're pouring money and trying and getting sponsors and working at making this as best they can. I really dislike the idea that we're talking about how how Ducati could put a nail in the coffin, when for 4 years World Superbike was the only one that cared, and then Ducati was like, fuck it, we're making a dope ass bike, we're gonna make it so crazy it's almost comical, and we're gonna go get a hella good guy from GP to ride this damn thing. That's what we want. We got a name brand guy, a high-end Spanish rider, one of the meccas of motorcycle racing.
A guy that Gigi Dell'Igna has been trying to get in World Superbike since he was still working for Aprilia.
Yep.
Right. Right, exactly. Well, so we're seeing that if you invest really well and bring in a cool name brand rider, you could potentially do really well.
Yeah.
It's
all kind of there. Like BMW even has kind of done this in their own way, whatever you want to call it. Like, they built this new bike, and like, you can't even get it. You can't even buy one of these things. Mm-hmm. They built it and said it's going to be out, it's going to be great. And then they basically just gave all of them to the World Superbike team and like haven't sent any to any dealers for sale.
I mean, they kind of did what like Suzuki did in MotoGP, right? They just took over an existing team, provided some awesome machinery, and providing them with technicians. So
yeah, I mean, you're just getting infrastructure. BMW decided at some point, hey, we could just build this from the ground up, or let's just support in a established infrastructure. It's just, hey, they got the people, they got the trucks, they got the shop, they got this, they got that. Like,
I mean, I guess that's all that. Like Kawi and Ducati did all the same thing anyway too. So I don't know why I brought it up. They've all done exactly that, right? Kawi was, what were they before? They're Perticini right now. They were the one dude that's in BSB.
Paul Bird.
Yes, it was Paul Bird, Kawasaki, and then
the money laundering drug trafficker.
Who isn't he? Scott Redding's team owner now.
Yes.
No, I mean, Kev, you have a good point. Like, it is a little hypocritical of me to think that Ducati making this investment into World Superbike is another nail in the coffin. It's not so much that they're investing the money, it's how they did it. It's the fact that they raised the game. And I worry that if the game keeps going up, that it's more nails, people get left behind. Like, if HRC turns around this season and does something amazing, and BMW end up with 5 factories that are all fighting for podiums and doing good, and there are a bunch of actors to lead to an exciting season, then I'm, completely full of shit, and we just need to sustain that. But if things taper off like they normally do, if HRC pulls out, if BMW flounders because they can't get the electronics right, then it's not only that shit is too expensive, or Ducati raised the game there, it's also that shit is too hard, right? You know what I'm going to say next. I'm still a major proponent for spec ECU. Get the fucking electronics away from the factories. Put a spec ECU in World Superbike.
It's only as hard as the best team makes it.
Which just happened with a $40,000 motorcycle and crazy investment.
Let's rewind. Let's go to Kawasaki's dominance.
Yeah, okay, same problem.
They're gonna bring in this rule change instead of waiting. I guess you can only wait so long, but like, I feel like this rule change came in where we're going to limit the revs, and then all of a sudden a couple other manufacturers decide they care as much as Kawasaki does, so they start investing. HRC takes over Honda. Ducati builds a new bike.
Don't list those two things in the same sentence. They're not anywhere close.
Hey, I mean, it's a clear effort to try and better. Everybody's got their own way of trying to better their program.
Yeah.
If Honda's going to better a program, the thing they're going to do is involve HRC.
Yeah, and they're going to go through Milwaukee, and yeah.
Sure.
So
I feel it's bad timing. That's why, like, I'm not a huge fan of the rev limit thing. Like, let the teams build the cool shit. And if somebody wants to walk away with the races and the championships, it's because they built the best shit, and they deserve it. If somebody else wants to step up, then step up.
I mean, but the rev limit was just a half-ass stopgap for the spec ECU, right? Like the factories wouldn't go for it in the production series, so they couldn't institute it, and they did the rev limit instead, right? If GP didn't have spec electronics right now, we would not be making this comparison of like GP's fucking exciting. There's a bunch of good actors in it, and it's great racing, right? We'd be talking about one factory running away and Marquez winning everything, which I guess is already happening anyway. But
right.
No, I mean it's I don't like the rev limit either. I think they're half-assed. It was a half-assed rule change. They need to take the rule book from the factories and just do what the fuck they want.
Track records. I want to see,
which is fine. I mean, GP's got lower spec electronics than World Superbike right now. They're still breaking track records. We're gonna get that if they did it right. What would be easier is Kawasaki wouldn't be able to lock down their electronics for their second tier team and not allow them to adjust strategies, right? The strategies would be managed by someone else, and it would be easier for those other people to manage them.
The main problem that World Superbike has had, at least in my opinion, you guys know, in the last number of years, is twofold: a lack of storylines and a perceived lack of prestige. So we can't address lack of prestige if we make every bike a shitty bike from the fucking showroom. Like, I like the idea of homologated specials, which are like super crazy versions of the street bikes you get. And we can't have new storylines if riders from different points of view, or different era spots of motorcycling don't feel they could come here and invest and have like a fresh start or new blood. What World Superbike has is a monotony issue, both from a manufacturer point of view and a rider point of view. It's basically BSB International. And
which we saw brew for about a decade. Like, it just kind of turned itself
which is
in
a problem.
Yeah.
I have a real hard time finding any fault right now with what Ducati has done, because they've done the two things we needed. They upped the prestige by making a bike that's fucking unreal, and they brought a rider over from GP and injected an entirely new storyline, which is effectively not just Alvaro versus Rea, but it is sort of like an invasion angle, GP versus World Superbike.
I mean, we're talking about it now.
We're talking about it right now. Right.
No, and you're right, but that storyline is the short-term honeymoon, right? Or it may be. It could not be, right? It could there could be an influx of older GP riders now over the next 2 years. They go to ride Ducati, they go ride the ZX RRR. Beamer brings a new bike, HRC finally gets their shit together, right? Like, there could be an influx of more talent and more storylines. Like, I'm just worried. Just pulling all this worry out of my ass.
Hey, were you worried that Rea was just going to sweep the weekend before the weekend started?
Before the weekend started? No. Right. No, not with Marco winning on the Ducati last year. I figured
you were a little worried.
No, I knew that Phillip Island is always this massive outlier. I was not worried at all.
Worried would imply that he had any emotional investment in World Superbike whatsoever, which is the actual problem. No emotional investment, right? Like, people.
Very good point.
Like, people in GP boo Marquez, right? Like, and people will complain, "Oh, that's bad," but I'm like, no, it's emotional investment, and that's what you want. You want emotional investment by your fans.
Soccer hooligans buy a lot of tickets. They're emotionally invested.
The last thing you want is disinterest. Just like I've said this before, if you're an artist, the last thing you want is someone to look at your painting and go, "Huh," and then move on. You want them to love it, or you want them to hate it, and you want them to hate it. You want them to desperately love it. World Superbike's problem, because of no new storylines and diminishing prestige, is that people are like, yeah, I watch it. There's something. It's on BN Sports, which isn't on any station now, which is fucking sweet. You know what I mean?
I'm so glad that we're done with beIN Sports.
Right, exactly.
If you haven't heard, just a slight aside there, Moto America has signed up for Superbike races on Fox Sports 2, some other show on NBC Sports Network. No word on what's actually going to be played there, and then they will have a streaming package. Hosted by a company that I forget the name. But it's, what is the pre-order price is $40 for the year, or is it 50?
$49.
$50 for the year, and then I think if you wait until the season starts, then it goes up to like 60 or 70. But streaming service for cheaper than World Superbike, cheaper than MotoGP, and you'll get all the races. And there's an iPad app, there's an iPhone app, an Apple TV app.
There's a guy named Kyle Wyman racing a V4R with all the same fucking shit we were just talking about. All these awesome storylines.
There will be winglets in Moto America next year. I can guarantee it.
Right, exactly. Yep. I guarantee it.
Sorry
right.
to butt
so
in there, Kyle.
For me, like to go back to like the storyline aspect, right? Like, I'm not really like. It's like a TV show, right? Like, man, I don't watch Game of Thrones season 5 thinking, man, like, I don't know, is season 7 gonna be cool? I'm too fucking focused on this one right now. Did you see Hard Home Battle? Did you see the fucking dragons? Oh my god. Stop worrying about 2 years from now, Rob. What are you, my mom? Jesus fuck. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, this season right now is gonna be dope. I'm not really worried about 3 years from now. We'll fucking cross that bridge when we come to it. The only bridge I want to burn on the way over there is the World Superbike is hella boring bridge. Right now, it's not boring.
No,
I'm super stoked on it. You know what I mean?
Well played, Kev.
Like, yeah, exactly. Like, I'm not, like, I don't watch, like a good example, like, every episode of South Park for 19 years was a brand new episode. I didn't need it to be like have continuity. Then it had continuity, and that was kind of cool and different and new. I didn't think about, is next season going to have continuity? I don't know. I'm just interested in what's happening right now.
You really do live in the now.
Yes. We all have to live in the now because the past is the past and the future doesn't exist.
Does it?
No. It doesn't.
Oh, man.
Speculation.
Yes.
It's speculation, hearsay, all the things you get for free on BrotoGP.
Exactly. Whether the future exists or not is not the issue. It's whether we can perceive that it exists, and we can't. Because our brains evolved over the course of like 3 billion years and then onto the plains of East Africa 100,000 years ago to perceive a very short period of time through a narrow cause and effect window. So whether the future actually exists or not, I don't care, because I can't comprehend or perceive it. I'm just interested in whether Alvaro Bautista is going to shit all over Johnny Rea again, or whether we're going to act like Johnny Rea's whole life is over, even though he got second in all 3 races.
Where are they going next? I don't even remember. Are they going to Thailand?
Fucking Thailand, dog.
Oh, man.
That's what's up.
How did Thailand go last year?
Right.
I can't even. Kyle, are you surprised that you got all shades of Kevin on this episode?
All shades?
Yeah, he waxed poetically here at the end about the perception of the future. I think that's about as full. That's about as
all shades.
As full Kevin as you could go.
He's showing off for me.
I'm peacocking a little for Kyle. You know, I gotta peacock. I gotta spread my feathers and let him know. You know what I mean? I didn't really think personally that when I first started BrotoGP, I thought, especially when we got onto YouTube, I'm like, how am I going to possibly operate looking at Rob constantly? And then Kyle was on, and it's just like, there's too much handsome man. Like, there's too much man meat. I don't even know what's going on right now. Like, Kyle's wearing the hat, but look, if he takes his hat off, he's got a clean undercut, son. He's styling. Oh, fuck. Look at that shit. God damn.
How often do you guys get your hair cut?
It ain't like freaking Rob's beautiful
flowing mane.
Yeah.
I got a haircut, all right? It's now 3 inches shorter, and you can't.
It's now 3 inches shorter. Title of Rob's sex tape.
God damn it. There we go. I'll put it on that side. I need better lighting, apparently.
I mean, okay, let me ask you, Kyle. Like, you've been watching for a while, and you have a particular interest, from a professional point of view.
Please be a joke question.
Right? No, I'm serious. It's not a joke question, right? Like, this is a real question. Like, when you have more than a passing interest in how things do because you'll be racing and developing a bike on your own. When you look at what World Superbike could be this year, what is it that you're actually looking for to happen? Like, do you think like a Ducati dominance for a year is a bad thing, or is this something like a welcome change of pace? Even though one rider basically dominated the season, for me it was like a sigh of relief. Fuck, finally. You know what I mean? Someone really showed not just winning but dominance. I guess I should say like you're beyond what your average fan, because you have a vested interest in it. When you saw this race weekend, what is the thing that you were looking for World Superbike for the rest of the season? Like, what did this make you think looking at the potential for the season?
Perfectly selfish reasons.
Right.
Please, those are the best kind.
I'm going to share those. These guys are in a good mood, and maybe they'll want to share even more information with me. I mean,
your answer. Go ahead.
These guys end up scrambling because take Alvaro out of the picture. These guys are scrambling because Chaz is uncomfortable. They had some engine malfunctions and testing, and they're scrambling. They don't give a fuck about Kyle Wyman emailing asking what's the pin out for the Morelli dash. They're not worried about it. For me so far, I mean, it's been really good. On a broad scale, the season's going to be good. I think you're going to have some really good battles between the Cowies and the Ducatis. And so I include Chels.
I would be guilty as a prosecutor of leading the witness, because I knew that you would bring up that you had a personal interest beyond it. But that's the fucking point of World Superbike, right? People root for the bikes or manufacturer that they have. Like, what's unique to World Superbike is someone could have the new V4 or they could have a Panigale, right? That's why they kept the name Panigale, because everyone that has the fucking 2-cylinder Panigale is still like, man, I really want that Panigale to win. Yeah. They don't necessarily need to like Alvaro or like Chaz or like Rinaldi or like Mustache Boy. Like, there's a connection. What World Superbike has is a connection above and beyond. It's a potential that's necessarily untapped, and it's that you like the bike itself because you may potentially have a version of that bike.
It is untapped because everything in World Superbike is untapped. The majority of the potential there,
not necessarily now. Yeah. Right. Or at least, like, for example, I've always been a big fan of Ducati. I've always, like, me personally, I did like Yamaha, and when it came to riding motocross bikes, I was a big fan of my Kawasaki 125 and those bikes for a variety of reasons. But I've always been a fan of Ducati, so Ducati winning for me is above and beyond just that Alvaro is cool. I really like that brand. I really like that bike. I really want the V4R to succeed for reasons beyond that the race is entertaining. And Kyle saying that he has a selfish, quote unquote, reason behind it is the reason everyone should be rooting for World Superbike beyond, right? Because we all ride motorcycles or we're all fans of motorcycles.
Well, that's why people stay watching, right? Like, good racing is how you get new fans. Storylines are how you keep most of them, right? I mean, storylines. Go ahead.
The thing that was kind of comical to me was, like, after that first race when he, Bautista just waxed everybody, my phone's blowing up from people all over the place. Pressure's on. We expect the same from you, Like, no excuses now. I'm like, all right. Sure.
Right, but look what that did. Alvaro Bautista wins in World Superbike, and a large number of people, the first thing they're thinking is, fuck, how's Kyle going to do in Moto America? That puts eyes on Moto America. Now, that's pressure and, like, super no pressure on you at all, that, like, hell, a lot of people are going to watch and, like, think, like, wow, Kyle better do good, or what's the deal?
Way to go, Kev. No pressure, Kyle.
Right, but that's like you said, that's chatter, that's talking, that's the moment that bike did well, it connected that success to a variety of other series. A lot of people I know were like, hey man, Redding might get reborn, right? Like he's riding that bike in.
This is the exact ish that pushed me over the edge into this decision.
Really?
Because I mean, technically, from a technical standpoint, really good. Relationship standpoint with Corsa, everything's really good. Everything worked out. They got me bikes early. Everything's awesome. But this is a marketing endeavor. Mm-hmm. This is marketing. This is connecting with fans. This is connecting with sponsors. And I have never received the kind of overwhelming response that I did the day I announced that I was going to race a Ducati.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Unbelievable. And in the past, I feel, super risky. Lots can go wrong. A lot of mechanicals with those twins. Dude, this bike is a weapon. I'm going for it. That was it. At some point, I said, you know what? This is the right thing.
I guarantee you more people are at your booth. More people are stopping by because the fucking logo on your hat.
The thing's got fucking winglets.
It's got winglets. Yeah, right. It's not, and I want to just clarify. I'm not discounting that people shouldn't go over to Kyle's spot before, but
no,
it was
100%, man.
It was just another Yamaha, which right, yeah. And it's marketing because in the end, motorcycle racing exists as a branding exercise. Whether we all want to talk
100%.
about it's the big undercurrent that no one really wants to talk about, but that's true. The whole sport exists.
We talk about it all the
time,
Kev. No one listens to us apparently.
Right, exactly. Well, according to Rob's writer's law spiel, 3 people listen to us.
Right, but what I'm sponsoring us.
Right, no. Right. Oh my God! But what I'm saying is that Ducati's victory and a Ducati doing well is beyond in Kyle's exact point. He gets many text messages, he gets phone calls. There's posts on Instagram, the chatter or the engagement, to use buzzwords.
Yo,
from 2019.
If Alex Lowe's goes and waxes the field like Bautista did, and I'm still on a Yamaha this year, nobody's texting me saying, "Oh, pressure's on."
Right.
That's true.
Let's be real. Alex Lowe's is not showing up and waxing any field whatsoever.
I mean, but Kyle, you're the other now, right? You're the sole Ducati. You're bringing in something that people haven't seen in a long time, right? That is the marketing presence that you want and need in Moto America. And Kev, that's a very good point that I had never really considered, right?
That's because you're dumb as fuck.
No, your other point. We don't get that whole Moto America increase.
Let him find his point.
From Ducati winning a GP race, right? We don't Kyle being on the Ducati. He gets a lot. He would get a lot of play even if Alvaro didn't win because he's the sole Ducati. But he gets way more because it's the exact same motorcycle in a different series. Dovi winning at Qatar doesn't get Kyle any play. And that's something.
Right,
so exactly. I mean, so I'll blame.
Unless Kyle had Mission Winnow sponsorship.
Hey Kevin, isn't that a win now?
Oh my fucking God!
No, it's
for
not.
Reals. All you shitheads who keep fucking messaging me that it's win now. They may have picked the super obscure word winnow because it sounded like win now, but it's definitely winnow. How do I know? They made a shirt that had the word winnow with the definition of it. Now, yes, I know it's just subliminal advertising for Marlboro cigarettes, and I guess if you're not cheating, you're not trying, but it's winnow. It's not win now. Stop messaging me that it's win now. Okay? They've literally never said the term win now. They have a whole explanation of what the term winnow means. They released a white shirt that has the definition of winnow on it, and they literally showed a picture of a rotary telephone and explained that by winnowing wires, which is to remove the unnecessary, enabled mobile phones to exist. It's Mission Winnow That's what it is. If you don't like it, you can winnow your brain down the drain. I don't even know what that means. But just fucking seriously, stop.
Well, I never.
I just wanted to light that bottle rocket real quick.
Boom. Right. Exactly. God damn.
Kyle, stop talking so close to your microphone. Stop that.
But Kyle has the right point. If Alex Lowe's or Marco Melandri go and win at Phillip Island, that doesn't change anyone's interest in Moto America or BSB.
Nope.
But Bautista winning on that bike has brought, like, a rising tide rises all boats. The Superbike tide just rose by that race. Yep. Now, maybe that gives Kyle more pressure, but that also gives him more, like, urge and interest and support. And everyone around him is like, now, man, this potential is dope. We really want to put in extra work. We're all going to put in extra hours or try harder or put a little more effort into it. Like, that, it's weird to say that one guy winning a couple races in one weekend has, like, changed the game, but there is, like, a paradigm shift.
That's what we've said the whole time.
No, what I'm saying is it's weird to say if you say that in a vacuum, but we just spent the last hour explaining why that is the case. And it's so for me it's such a net positive. Like, I'm interested in watching the next race. Like, I really, really am. I'm stoked to see what happens. And I'm stoked to see what happens because we've built this, like, now, like, web of interconnecting interest between other series. I'll tell you, him winning Rea, I already obviously root for Kyle as my favorite guy in Moto America, and he's the guy that I pay the most attention to, right? But, like, but I pay attention to everyone. But I'm not. What are you laughing? I'm not even joking. I'm serious.
I raced in Moto America too. I thought I was your favorite.
You don't race. You whatever.
I thought I was your favorite.
You race in Supersport.
You saw me on TV like once.
Excuse me. In Superbike class, Kyle is the guy that I pay the most attention to because I'm interested from a human interest story and all this. But now the story has changed. It's beyond, like, a human interest story. It's a manufacturer interest story. But it's also made me look, oh man, I got to pay attention to what Redding's up to. I got to pay attention to what Paul Bird's up to. Oh man, I'm actually going to pay attention to Laverty this year. Like, there's changes in, because Superbike is a production-based series that is all across different parts of the world. It's changed things for me and for a lot of people.
That'd be very interesting if we did a BSP episode because it's never happened before and we've had requests for it.
What color are your bikes going to be, Kyle?
Come on.
How much black? Just straight red?
No, just straight
red. Actually, I don't know yet. We'll see.
There isn't much time.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah. No, I'm gonna do that next week.
Right? Yeah.
Perfect.
No, yeah. I've got two liveries. I've got to just go.
It's livery.
Oh, that was a good face.
Yes.
Oh man. All right, guys. I think Kyle specifically said that he didn't really want to talk about himself, and we did that for straight a half an hour. So let's.
Well, hold on. It wasn't really talking about. Let me answer. It wasn't really talking about Kyle's, like, him, like, oh, let's interview him. It was more that, to the point that I said, that the Ducati's new bike winning in such dominant fashion has raised interest level across a variety of series.
That's true,
and I think that's true.
But we can't end this episode agreeing.
We could have easily have said if Matt Skoltz was riding a V4 and talked about that with Kyle. He happens to be riding the V4, so we talked to him about it. But, like, our interest level would be higher if other guys were riding it. Just like I've mentioned riding a couple times in other teams. It just happens to be. It's not really like. And I asked him about his interest level because I was kind of, like I said, leading the witness that people in Superbike classes are interested in models, not just brands.
It's true.
Which is why when the 1098 won under Troy Bayliss in 2006, it was such a huge deal because people actually didn't like the 999. They were ready for a different model Ducati to win. When Ducati was winning the 999, it wasn't as interesting as them winning with the 1098. And now the new V4 is like It's the paradigm shift in Ducati. It's them finally moving to a production V4 as our flagship model. It's them abandoning their previous motif and moving on to something new. And for me, that's also the other story. That literally after decades of a self-defining engine, this is who we are, this is what we do. We will lobby for rule changes to get 1200 cc's, all these reasons. We are changing to the V4, and bada boom, we knocked it out of the park on the first.
I mean,
try.
it's not an accident that the V4 comes out as an 1100 and the V4S.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so nobody can race it, right?
Right.
Anywhere in any series. It's a 4-cylinder 1100. It's not legal anywhere. So they have a year to kind of just wind up and just throw down this R, and it's just it's wild.
I mean, we saw that same thing with Panigale. Yeah, Kev, I like how you're bringing this up at the very end of the episode, like a humongous point that we totally forgot to cover. Yeah, Ducati changed their entire identity by moving to the V4, and no one's talking about it, right? Like I absolutely forgot because of these races, because of the performance. I absolutely forgot that it was a complete paradigm shift for their identity, moving away from the twin. But I don't really give a shit now. They won.
If anything, people were excited about it because the moving away worked out. Like there's, if you look at like use bands, for example, when was the last time a band changed their sound, knocked it out of the park, and everyone loved it? There's always pushback. Yeah. When was the last time that, a movie series or a franchise totally changed like its motif or its aesthetic and people were jazzed? But yet Ducati changes everything about who they are. Like Kyle said, he literally closed his eyes and listened to the bike, and it sounds like a GP bike, which is him inadvertently saying it sounds nothing like a Ducati.
Yeah.
Kyle, he's going to bring that up like every episode now.
And what is the story, right? That's fucking rad. So there's the idea that not only did they win a race, Alvaro came over, but they made an entire shift in their identity and knocked it out of the park. This is the go-ahead for every other series. This goes back to what I said, or every other manufacturer. Kawasaki, hey man, you want to be known as like the bland bike that's still riding Ninja on the side of the bike like it's 1996 and shit? Like every manufacturer has just been shown you can change your identity right now and people will accept it. People are ready to accept change in World Superbike, and they are thirsty for it. Like they're hungry for that change, and you can change who it is and what you are as long as you win and do well and try hard. That's like, it's an open invitation for someone like BMW or someone like Honda. Like Honda didn't even want to put a slipper clutch in their street bike for fucking years until finally they were kind of forced to. Like Honda, the fucking customer base is desperate for you to change.
Yeah, but you can't make a Honda V4 happen. It's just not.
But you can.
That's the thing, is you're more likely to see it. I mean, you can argue that Aprilia already kind of did that a little bit,
Yeah.
when they had their V4.
Right.
And it got stale, and they bounced, unfortunately.
Well, they bounced, and then the teams were no longer true factory teams because Gigi left.
Yeah, really. You got to have those eyebrows to win.
So eyebrow.
Sorry, you're right.
Right, singular.
So like you're more likely to see it from a Ducati or BMW or Aprilia than you are from the Japanese manufacturers. Like,
it's true. They don't. I wouldn't expect the Japanese manufacturers to kind of rock the boat and change their identity in the same way that the Italian manufacturer would, and that's exactly what we've seen.
Right, which would only make that decision that much more impactful.
It's true. They just got to do it once every 50 years.
Do it one time.
Just bring out a new.
4 of them. One of them can do it.
One of them can.
Try it.
See, that's why we need we need the actors. We need everyone in the series.
You need everyone involved. Right, exactly.
Yeah. All right, guys. I think we should round this one out. It's been about 90 minutes. Kev did the hand motion there, so we're going to close this one down. What's next? Next is MotoGP in Qatar.
Bada boom.
Yeah. This is BrotoGP. We will talk about MotoGP eventually.
Predictions, Kyle?
Predictions.
What do you want to predict? The winner of the race?
Yeah, what do we...
Should we do something obscure?
Pecco podiums.
Damn.
Calling it.
You calling it already?
Third.
Nah. He doesn't beat. Petrucci beats Dovi.
I was just gonna say that.
Oh, sorry.
Dang.
We're all talking about Ducati again.
It's hard to say an out there one. There's too many There's a lot of storylines in MotoGP. That's why it's so damn good.
Rossi wins.
Yeah. I was gonna say Rossi podium.
God,
that would be tasty.
It bums me out that that's like a weird outlier prediction.
I know.
Fucking hell, man.
Yamaha's still not happy with their drive. They fixed braking, supposedly. They found some things in testing, but they're still losing out on drive. And Rossi said he's happy now that they can stay in the draft of the Ducati, which says that does not bode well for a win, especially at Qatar.
Cal complains. That's my prediction.
Cal will.
I predict that here's a prediction. Bradley Smith will beat Andrea Iannone on his wild card races.
Wow.
Going for it.
That's pretty brutal. But I could see that happening. They've testing has been going very interestingly for Aprilia. All right, everyone. We're gonna take off. Thank you for listening. Catch us in a week or two with an episode about MotoGP. And that's all I got. Kyle, thanks for joining.
Call Riders Law and buy a Kyle Wyman Racing shirt.
There you go.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Appreciate it. It's fun.
Sweet. Later. Peace.
Yeah.